morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to talk about trend lines. We've been talking in the last video about market structure and the trend, how to identify the trend. And today I want to show another tool that can be useful if the concept of higher high and higher low is sometimes a bit hard for you to see. This will allow you to then pretty much identify the trend much more easily. So as we were talking about, this would be an uptrend, but in the market, it's not as clear. But what we can do to make it clearer is to simply draw a line at each of the lows. And that way we can see that by doing that, the low will be always coming back. And we would expect, if the trend continues, that this just touches the trend line and then bounces on it and goes back up to continue the trend. So it's basically a tool that is used to indicate that the trend is still ongoing, and it's mostly used to also spot the reversals, because as we can see, when the trend starts to break and form the lower low, as I was mentioning in the last video, we also see that the trend line is broken, because here, instead of bouncing back and creating a new high, it's just going down and breaking that trend line. So this is the main idea of trends and trend lines. It's to assist you in trying to identify the trend. So now let's just show an example on a proper chart. This is the Forex pair USD CAD, because usually Forex tends to trend more and respect the market structure compared to crypto. So I thought this would be really nice to show the point. Now, how to draw the trend line? You usually want to start with a wick to take the whole price movement. Some people also do it with the close of candles. It's really up to you. But I personally prefer to put it on the little wicks. So we will find a first wick and then a second point. And usually the trend lines, you want to touch 2 times and then wait for another retest to say that this trend is actually valid. So here we can see that there is one first touch. Then here we make the trend line, and it's retested once, twice, 3 times, and then 4 times after that. So we can consider that this trend line is valid. Now, another thing about the trend line is that it acts a bit as a support. So for those who don't know what a support is, I have a video on this. You can go check it out. But the support is essentially a horizontal line where the price is likely to bounce up and down. And you can see that this is an area where people are willing to buy. Now, for trend line, it's a bit of a similar concept, because many people are drawing the same trend lines, and they are just waiting for the price to come back up and betting that the trend is going to go higher. So this is a way to kind of enter the market in a safer way, because you're not just buying at a high. You wait for the pullback and you get a better price. But then if the trend continues, you know that it's not supposed to go down and break that trend line. So it's also a nice invalidation signal, because you know as soon as the price will close and start to move below that trend line, then your trade is no longer valid and you can just exit the trade and take your loss, which is another concept that's very important in trading, and we'll be discussing more in detail. So we can see that this trend line seems to be valid, and here we almost retested, but not completely. And we have one more retest here. So of course it's a bit of up to you. You can then move a bit the trend line to make it fit more closely to the price. Here we can see that would make sense, so we can kind of catch this as well. And here we bounce again on it, as well as here we almost have a retest. And now we get to the moment where the trend line is broken, but it's not as clear as always, because you can't just enter on a short right here. Well, you could, but then you would just get stopped out. And the reason for that is that it's not a confirmation signal in itself. It's more of an additional signal that you have. But for example, here we would wait to see that this support is retested and really broken, and we do get this later. But we would need more confirmations than just this break of trend line. And another thing to note is that once a trend line is broken, it is very likely that the price will just come and retest that trend line. And that's exactly what we see here. There's a big pullback, and then you could be tempted to think, oh, wow, now the market is reversing and continuing that trend. But it's actually just retesting that trend line to kind of validate it as now a resistance. And so that trend line will act as the same as a resistance, which is just then gonna allow people to sell here. So they probably bought here, and then profit target is here. It's almost the same as this nice resistance here. It's in the same area, and there we can see that there's a sharp drop in the price. So it's worth also keeping the trend lines for later, although when you see that there is a new trend, then you can simply start drawing another trend line. So here we can try it with here, maybe like this, because this is another trend line. Oops, sorry, an alert. So this is a nice trend line that we have here. And it's quite interesting to note that the more sharp the trend line, the less likely it's to be respected for a long time. We can see here the drop is quite strong, so there's a lot of momentum in the market, as compared to here where the trend line was more of a shape that is less steep. So this trend line was more significant, and it held for a few days. While this one, the price cannot go as fast for a very long time. So here we can see that this was for about 2 days. And the reason for that is that the market has momentum, and it needs at some point to get the energy back, because the reason why here it's dropping is that people are selling. But once everyone has sold the positions they wanted, then there's no more selling pressure, and the market is likely to consolidate or reverse. And here that's what we see. The market is just taking a breath, and then when the buyers are ready to enter, we start a new trend. And here again, we could draw a trend line. So keep that in mind. You can do trend lines anywhere, but then when the trend lines are very sharp, it's more likely that they will be broken. And it can be also sometimes that the trend line, the first trend line is broken, but then you could also adjust it like this and see if the price will then keep dropping. Here we could see that this trend line would actually act also as a support. So the reason why I don't use trend lines that much in my trading is because, as you can see, it's a bit subjective. You could put it here or here, and you would get different entry signals based on that. So support and resistances are a bit more straightforward, I would say. For example, here we could draw the support, and we can see clearly the break of this support and the retest. So it's a bit less subjective, to my opinion. So that's what I wanted to show about the trend lines. I think we got a bit everything that's needed, but we could see how we can then enter a trade. There is always the problem that when a trend line breaks after a sharp move, then the market can consolidate. And when it's consolidating, it's not really always going to have a change of direction. So it's also something you want to pay attention to, that when the market is just consolidating and not breaking the trend line and starting a new uptrend, here we can see that it's pretty much consolidating, but there is a very big bullish candle. So that could be an entry if, providing that this would be a support, we could just go there and maybe target this previous high. Obviously, this is easy because I'm seeing the chart, but that could be one strategy. If this is a support and you get other confluences, then this could be a pretty nice reversal trade, and we have a retest that's not as high as not as low as this one, so it would work pretty much. So this is a good tool to keep in mind. Thank you for following this video. I hope that you liked it and that you learned something. Please comment, like, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton. And I will see you in the next one.